Book 3 of Dungeon Crawler Carl is different. Um, Book 3 of the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, the Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook, it is different from books 1 and 2. When I usually look at the discourse online, right, and I see these creators ranking the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, the books in the series, ranking them from their least favorite book in the series to their favorite book in the series. Uh, Quite often, I actually see Book 3, Anarchist Cookbook, usually near the bottom. Either people's least favorite book in the series or one of their least favorites. Rarely do I see it above like a middle tier ranking. I'm here to say that I disagree. That's the take for this video, the premise of this video. So thank you guys for watching. All seriousness, I do have to disagree with the sentiment that is sort of around the Anarchist Cookbook. And, you know, as BookTube's contrarian, that's what they call me on BookTube. If you haven't been paying attention, they could say, you know, RQ Bookman. He's the contrarian. We're all trying to that he's just that guy, you know. So ask any of the popular booktubers; they all know me. But I will say that yes, the Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook is different, especially compared to the first two books. It feels like the series takes its own angle, but that's a good thing. I'm gonna say in this case, the differentness, that different feeling, is good. It's a good thing. So let me explain. All right, so let's get right to the beets and the tomatoes of this argument or debate that I'm trying to make. Beets and tomatoes. I don't know who made the script. When I see people rank Anarchist Cookbooks so low on their Dungeon Crawler Carl tier lists, the piece of evidence I see cited the most to used against, not in favor of the Anarchist Cookbook, why people dislike it, is the setting. It's the Iron Table. So if you're unfamiliar, in Book 3 of Dungeon Crawler Carl, the setting is, you know, our cast is in the super complex railway subway station system. And this is what I see most people critique or, you know, they have this favor for this book is because of this setting. That most people say they're not a fan of it. Yes, the Iron Tangle is pretty unique. Again, though, this differentness, this uniqueness, I see it as a strength for this series, and it serves the characters as well. I believe in every series, and you'll see sentiments and similar trains of thoughts in the booktube sphere. But in every series, right, there's, especially in longer series, you have that book that cements this series as its own unique bend or take on the genre, or the tropes that are followed in the genre, right? The idea of a series becoming its own is something common to the fantasy genre. This is due to a lot of fantasy writers post Tolkien had to make their first books sound similar to Lord of the Rings to get into the publishing business. And then once they got that deal and started their series, they can sort of divert and take their own spin or their own twist on the genre, what they want to say, how to relate fantasy to maybe the human condition or things that we face in our own real world. I'll use the Wheel of Time, for example. It's one of the fantasy series I'm the most familiar with. So a lot of people will say that the Shadow Rising is when the Wheel of Time really becomes the Wheel of Time. It becomes, you know, it starts really emphasizing the elements and the character decisions and the world building decisions that makes the Wheel of Time unique in its own series that, you know, people love and adore. I would argue as early as Book 2, you can really see the Wheel of Time becoming its own sort of genre, not just a Tolkien clone or copy. Eye of the World, I'm not the biggest fan of, but I do think as soon as Book 2, The Great Hunt, I would argue the series becomes its own sort of unique take on the fantasy genre. Sort of circle back on the to the Wheel of Time, specifically Book 1, The Eye of the World, right? It seems very similar to the Fellowship of the Ring from Lord of the Rings. We have these village of sort of just country farm living people, you know, they love to farm. They don't really leave their area, their hometown much. And then, you know, a magic wielding nerd loser shows up, right? And is like, listen, y'all gotta leave. And that is similar from the Fellowship in the Eye of the World, right? In the Eye of the World, we have Moraine, who is the wizard figure who comes to the community and lets our main cast know, hey, you guys gotta go. And then in the Fellowship, of course, that's Gandalf. And this is a very familiar trope in fantasy and in book ones of fantasy series. I think The I can't think of the fantasy series right now that also does it. Um, Terry Brooks is the sort of Shannara series, I believe, does this too. It's a common trope, right? And this is something that is not only seen in the fantasy genre. And this is where I'm going to pivot into the Dungeon Crawler Carl uniqueness argument spiel. Lit RPG has these same sort of tropes that book ones and series will follow, right? Obviously, in the book one of a lit RPG and progression series, you're going to get uh, discussions and dialogues on how the game system actually works. So here's how the game works. This is how you level up. This is how attributes work. This is how you get stronger, weaker, throw in the world building. That's in every book one of a lit RPG. And there is more than just Dungeon Crawler Carl, actually. I've started listening to He Who Fights with Monsters. Been listening to the audiobook on that. And yeah, again, similar beginning there. We start off with our main character, our protagonist, and we slowly learn the game mechanics. That's a common genre trope. What I'm getting at here is I believe that books 1 and 2 of Dungeon Crawler Carl fall into many of the tropes and follow sort of the timeline, not the timeline, you could say timeline, or the scale or the general progression that lit RPG series make in books 1 and 2. Book 1, of course, like I mentioned earlier, through Carl and Donut, we get sort of a little bits of world building outside the crawl, but we're also learning how the game works, right? Book 2, we have you have the fantasy setting, right? And that's something maybe similar to He Who Fights with Monsters and their lit RPG series. The setting there is very much fantastical. It's reminiscent of those classic fantasy settings, right? With the multiple races, you have the inns in the towns and the castles and the walls, and that book 2 of Dungeon Crawler Carl is, floor 4 or 3, because we're on floor 5 now. Anyways, the setting is you have the fantastical setting, right? And so again, this is something that is seen in lit RPGs before, that classic fantastical setting. When we get to book 3, we finally get that unique setting for these characters, and I think it really helps to build that specific Dungeon Crawler Carl flavor that we get, and will probably be prolonged in the series, but we get it specifically here in book 3. And that's one reason why I really did appreciate and enjoy the Anarchist Cookbook. Other than like Murder on the Oriental Express, I mean, it was really nice to get this sort of, I feel like it was very new for me, a setting that was based solely in a train system, train station, subway system station with the trains. It was very interesting to me. Also, there was some sort of mystique. It was like the system was something that the crawlers had to solve in order to make it to the stairwells, right? And there was a secret to, it was secret to how the railway system functioned and how you got to different levels that didn't seem possible before, how to go backwards with the trains. There was a lot of great story beats and elements there with the mystery, and with slowly discovering how the system functions with the train conductors and the Nightmare Express. Carl taking over that train and figuring out how it worked, how the trains are powered, how some NPCs function differently on different levels. That was another piece of world building we got through the train system setting. But I think more importantly, maybe not importantly, but something that's really was impactful for me is that the setting actually services character growth. And I'll explain that next clip. Taking our beloved cast of characters and putting them in this unique setting really just sort of highlights some elements of their character that progressed how our understanding of them is and how maybe they will go forward as characters. Obviously, in the railway system, you're pretty enclosed, right? Except for near the end when they make it to the actual train harbor, open area, corridor station. Most of this book, we're in close quarters, right? And Carl makes notice of this, right? It's hard to go big boom boom when you're in enclosed spaces. He can't just light off bombs and stuff because you're in that enclosed area. There's going to be repercussions. You might do damage to your own team, right? And this really helped us further understand the cleverness of Carl as a character, because he couldn't rely on his explosions, so he had to use other means to get those victories that he needed or to get those successes. Again, that we got that sort of highlighting of Carl's cleverness through the setting that restricted him. And for an example, we get one of the best scenes. Spoiler alert. When Donut uses her whole spell, and Carl's like, "I have an idea. Use your whole spell." Donut opens a hole in the wall. He pulls that one enemy through that like dungeon boss or whatever, and cuts his head off. And that's just, again, another display of us understanding Carl is a clever guy. He's pretty smart when it comes to, he's pretty resourceful, smart resourcefully, and he's also just generally intelligent. And it's not just with Carl too; it's with the other members of the cast. To this point in the story, Katia has been portrayed sort of as this timid, maybe self-conscious, maybe not self-conscious, but she doesn't have much self-confidence, and she's very timid, right? And we get a crazy development with her character when she is provoked with rage, right, on the train station. And because of her rage and being in these close quarters on this train, everyone's clumped together, she performs an act that has indirect consequences. It doesn't have the effect that she wanted, and it completely changes the landscape of the game. So because we're in this sort of tight combined setting, we get to understand that Katia, does have this capacity for rage to stand up for herself. It is possible, and we also sort of get an idea in this book that she is becoming more self-confident, less timid. Maybe not that that's being timid is a bad thing. She's, even in book 4, from what I've read, she's still sort of that timid character, but she's more confident when she does speak, or when she does have an opinion to voice herself or to put out. And that was the character progression that I really loved. I truly believe this is the Katia book, right? Some people will say like this book was this character's book, or this was the Katia book in my eyes, and she has submitted herself as maybe my favorite character, probably my favorite character. So Matt Dinniman, if you kill her off, like, dude, please don't, please. Again, that is the setting, servicing, development, and understanding these characters better. We even get it with Donut as well, in closed spaces, but there isn't many places to hide in this level of the dungeon in the subway system. And so Donut gets caught by Katia hiding these tickets with sort of sinister origins for what they can be used for. And it reveals this sort of side of Donut that, yes, she is still very childish in her like demeanor or outlook on the world, right? And we see that in the Hecla scene on the train near the end of the book. Well, not near the end of the book, but maybe about, I don't know, 3/4 of the way in. She makes a tense situation extremely more tense by voicing her opinion out loud and putting the team in jeopardy of some stuff going down. But we also learn that there is this side of it. Yes, she is still childish, but she still is, capable of making intelligent moves or doing things that are, having that sort of social awareness to understand, like, I could probably hide these tickets and it might actually benefit the group, to know that maybe to not even recognize the existence of them at all. Of course, she gets found out, and that causes a little bit of issues. Carl's a little bit worried, but he trusts her at the end of the day. But we sort of learn that Donut is childish, but she still is capable of making these types of important decisions for the group. So she's still very key to this group's future. I do have one critique about the setting, though, and I know this is so embarrassing because I just said the setting is one of my favorite parts of the story. A bit paradoxical, right? But the one issue I have with the Iron Tangle setting is it was a mystery that you couldn't really solve by yourself. I think the allure of mysteries and what great authors can do with a mystery is that they can leave the crumbs along the way for you to, with that evidence, along with some inferring of character actions and character motivations, you can sort of figure it out what the mystery is. You can solve it by yourself, like the Agatha Christie novels, for example, with a little bit of character inferring and again, understanding character motivations. You can almost discover the mystery, right? Unfortunately, with the Iron Tangle, it was a mystery that you could not solve, basically, unless you took a wild guess just out of your butt. I'll probably cut that out in post, but it was there was we got sort of, we would slowly get information about how the system works through Carl and Katia and Donna as they progress through this level. You know, how like it's sort of some of the tracks are on top of each other and they can like sort of float up and down the portals, but we didn't really understand how it worked or the purpose or like the function, or I guess the layout and how they get to the stair. We didn't really understand the layout fully until Mordecai, a character who had been absent for most of the book, comes back and he's like, oh yeah, so this is actually resembles the layout of a galactic universe that you characters and also the reader have no idea about. He basically gives us a crucial piece of key information that basically solves the mystery that there's no way we could have solved that by ourselves. And so that sort of kills the fun of trying to solve the mystery, right? Because it's like, well, I couldn't really have solved it in the first place because there was a piece of information that literally had not been brought up before and I had no clue about until a character info dumped it on us. So that was a knock that I had on this book. The mystery wasn't something you could have solved by yourself. But again, the Iron Tangle did have a lot of potential. I just wish maybe that mystery element was executed better. So good potential, good idea. We need better execution, sort of like Obamacare. Okay, so that was a joke. Obviously, I'm apolitical. The only party that, Obama's a great guy. The only party that I affiliate with is the Lemon Party. So I got an early membership subscription to the Lemon Party. Sort of just piggyback a moment off of what I mentioned earlier about how the setting serves the characters. There's just great character moments in this book overall. I think I mentioned them earlier with Donut. We do get to understand she's still childish, but there is some sort of maturing going on there. Again, Katia, the character work, we're going from, self-doubting to self-confident. We're starting that arc, that progression in this book. It started, which was awesome for that character. It had me super invested in this book and going forward for that character. Let's not even mention that Hecla scene, man. ... Wait, okay, so I'm not supposed to say the ... Don't say the ... part. Sort of wrap up what I'm saying here. The video overall, what was great in the previous two books is also equally, if not more great in book 3. The comedy's great, it's still there. The writing, the prose is simplistic but punchy. All the things that service the series greatly in the first two books, they're still in the book 3, and they're only more endearing, right? So we've only got to know these characters more. So the comedy and the interrelations between the group members was phenomenal. Also, what's great about book 3 is we start getting some character development for those tertiary more side characters, right? For example, like Imani, Ellie, Chris, Quan CH a little bit, Bautista the Tiger Man, Lee Jun and his group. Like, we really got to learn more about these characters, more than just where they ranked on the top 10 Billboard. Prepotente was in this book, and he's a goat. He's literally a goat, but we got some character work for those characters as well. That's another thing that serves this book well, and I puts it as my favorite above the first two books, Doomsday Scenario and Dungeon Crawler Carl, was that we also get the work for the side characters as well. This world is just growing and is being filled with a bunch of interesting characters that we want to follow, right? So, and we're learning more about the governments and the corporations outside of the crawl and how they majorly impact the results in the crawl. They have a hand in what is happening with sponsorships, and we get to learn that, the Kuatin are kind of weird, man. What's up with Zeph? They sent her to like a transition camp or something. It was crazy. But yeah, so needless to say, I've already redeemed the Audible audiobook for The Gate of the Feral Gods. I'm already about 11 chapters in. But yeah, I think purpose of this video is, let's put some more respect on book 3, the Anarchist Cookbook. Yes, the setting was a mystery we couldn't solve, but we got so many great character developments here. We have the seeds planted for great character growth and character tracks, no pun intended, going forward. And again, the side characters were also great. And this really does feel like the book where Dungeon Crawler Carl becomes Dungeon Crawler Carl. It's not just the new popular lit RPG series. It is its own unique series with its own things to say about the world that maybe we live in, and how we function. Uh, it maybe put some other big words in there in your head to make me sound better. But that is it for this video. Hopefully I kept this one a little bit shorter. I know we all got shorter attention spans nowadays. We got jobs, kids, stuff to do. But thank you all for sticking around and watching. If you want to follow with me on this Dungeon Crawler Carl journey, that would be awesome. We can talk about the books, as we get through them. I'm on book 4, as I mentioned. So video will be coming out. I'll try to do one DCC video a month. So you have till the end of July to finish book 4, or the end of, I don't know, just finish it. We'll talk about it. Yeah, and please subscribe.